Israel Masepa, Anagatelete, CF Israel Masepa, Anagatelete, SF Israel Masepa, Anagatelete, SF Futekiman,
The National Union of Metalworkers of South Africa is currently on strike, but will they get what they're bargaining for? Joining me on the channel is Jonathan Katzenellenbogen. He is a journalist with the Daily Friend online newspaper. Jonathan Katzenellenbogen, welcome to the Center for Risk Analysis.
Thanks for having me.
So Jonathan, you wrote an article for the Daily Friend called The Waning Power of NUMSA, where you argued that the influence and the power of NUMSA is on decline. Could you expand on some of those arguments for our audience, please?
Well, the first point is that there are far fewer members of NUMSA and other unions because jobs have contracted. South Africa is deindustrializing. It's probably in terminal decline as an industrial power, at least for the moment. And so that severely impacts. The metal industry is in dire straits. Demand has dropped. Meanwhile, input prices have nearly doubled since September last year. So you've got those two factors going on. And also the power of NUMSA has, to a large extent, been broken because it can't impose the wage settlements that it achieves on the industry as a whole.
So, Jonathan, what figures are they asking for? I saw reported 8% has been put on the table, and now CIFSA, the industry body, has come up with a counteroffer. What is the latest development there?
So the latest of the strike goes on. They haven't accepted anything that CIFSA has tabled. It's 4.4%, so it's quite a decrease. But the demands of NUMSA are quite ambitious. So they want 8% in the first year, and then 2% CPI plus 2% in the second year. And they also are wanting greatly improved terms and conditions, which are all quite ambitious and would, of course, raise the cost of labor quite substantially in the industry.
Enjoying this analysis? Click here to sign up for our 30-day free trial for more content from the CIA.
So, Jonathan, one of the themes of your article, which I'd like to unpack further, is this issue of the extension of collective bargaining agreements to non-parties. And that is something that has characterized the South African labor market across various sectors for a long time. That seems to benefit the big established organizations that can afford these higher wage bills, but punishes the little guy, the small businesses. What are some of the trends that you're picking up, particularly in the steel sector here, which are maybe offering a bit of a glimmer of hope in this regard?
Well, under Section 32 of the Labour Relations Act, any agreement that is reached in an industry can be applied to non-parties. And that doesn't mean if they're not part of a negotiation for those wages and they're not part of a bargaining council, that can still be imposed on their industry. That means that the big boys, the big players in industry, the incumbents, can impose wage settlements on the smaller guys. And the big and the small have very different cost structures. They're located in different parts of the country and they have different market power. And it's a very unjust system. Now, NIASA, the National Employers Association of South Africa, has a steel section. And it went to court and is now to the Labour Court a number of times. And it has prevented these imposed settlements on the industry as a whole. NIASA now members can negotiate their own wage settlements with their labor. They don't have to go through the bargaining council. And that really is historic because it is the only South African industry in which this occurs.
Okay, that's very encouraging, Jonathan. So hopefully we can see other sectors also adopting a similar model. Do you think that there are legal or regulatory obstacles to extending that to other sectors?
I spoke to the prominent labor lawyer, Andrew Levy, and what he says is that, yes, it is a precedent, but whether it'll occur is very unlikely in the immediate future, because the Labour Court decision in light of in view of the steel industry is specific, because they found that the bargaining council was not fully representative of its membership, and therefore it was anti-constitutional for the bargaining council, that is, in terms of the bargaining council's own constitution, for it to impose these settlements. So it's very specific, but this could be used as a precedent in the cases of other industries, yes.
So Jonathan, let's explore the political dimension of trade unions in South Africa, because NUMSA several years ago left the COSATU alliance, but is still very much a prominent political actor. And we also saw the EFF joining NUMSA in some of these marches that turned violent. There was a lot of destruction of property, etc. So how do you see unions, and particularly NUMSA, operating in the political landscape? Do they still have significant political influence?
I think they just certainly have significant political influence. And of course, COSATU is firmly aligned with the ANC and very influential with the ANC. There's no doubt about that. And many of its members rise up to prominent positions within the party. There are a number of union leaders, including the current finance minister, Ibrahim Patel, the Minister of Trade and Industry, who are prominent trade unions, all very left. And so within the Congress movement, they are part of the tripartite alliance, along with the Communist Party. So they certainly do have political influence. But even with this great political influence, their numbers are declining. COSATU numbers are nowhere near the 2 million plus that they were back in the early 90s. Many of the industries have contracted. South African manufacturing, as we've discussed, has contracted. Mining has contracted, and so forth. And with that, they have a diminished base. Now, what is interesting is that COSATU overwhelmingly represents public sector workers, workers who are civil servants, and those in the state-owned industries. And now what happens when the state-owned industries fold? They're bailing them out, many of them out at the moment, but they can't bail them all out, and they will have to also downsize them, whether or not they privatize them. And that'll also erode union power. It certainly won't be without a fight, but the political situation is very different to what it was just 20 years, certainly 20 years ago, and even 10 years ago.
Jonathan Katzenellenbogen, thank you very much for joining me on the CRA channel. Let's hand over to you, our viewers. Why do you think the power and influence of NUMSA is declining? Do leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Also, please remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And until next time, take care.